Hello and welcome to the 38th episode of building a 2D game in Flutter with multiplayer support. Today we're going to do two things. First of all, I'm realizing that, since now we have a server and a client and all these things going on, we need a little bit of diagnostics. We need a little bit of figuring out what's going on and not by debugging, but basically by logging. So we're going to add a logger and then what I'm going to do is just basically control the clients from the server. So we'll just get it to where the server will have give the clients, like the players, a velocity. We'll not take any inputs yet, but there'll be a velocity, and we'll move them. So far we did this for the angle, but I want to get to the point where we can use a controller that basically are shared, right? So let's start with the logging. So there's a logging package, and we're going to install that. This package is really nice, and basically what I just said open here is another kind of like a wrapper around it. And to wrap your logging library, there are two reasons why you may want to do that. One reason is that basically you want to be able to maybe flip out the swap out the underlying implementation, right? And the other one reason is, as we see, I basically will in the implementation that I have, I'll add a little extra features. So as you can see, Flutter is publishing new versions almost daily now. I don't want to install them during the cast though. So here we have this logger thing. We're just going to basically copy and paste that into a shared folder. I'm going to call it diagnostics. And we're going to have multiple things there that are related. So we got our logger here. The logger basically works like this. We basically just say create a logger, and then we basically can just we have warning, and you can see that just basically wraps the original logger. Right, so if we go here, right, this is the logger from the library that we just installed, and then we basically have there are certain things that I have here. There was a lot of disposing and creation of things going on. We'll keep that in here because we may use that later. And then you can see, if something is created, a pretty little duck, make it a little funny, and then here you can see that for the different log levels, we put different emojis so to easily identify them. It's actually easier to see it like this sometimes than putting text there. So I'm going to actually see how I use that logger in this app. So I think we must have like setting things up here. So basically we just have to say log activate console and activate set the log level. So we'll do that, and for now we'll do that in the server. So in our server, whenever the server starts up, we basically just do that. And obviously we need to import the logger package, and then it knows what this is. And then how we use it is, let me try to find where we actually log, for instance, from a block here. So here what we can basically say, we create a logger, and then it's basically scoped, it tells us what, where we're logging from. Which is kind of useful, right? Because, and we don't just see these kind of anonymous logs from over the place. And then we just say log finest, whatever we're trying to do. So let's put this here, and we'll put one into the game loop for now. So put one here, and we say this is a logger for the game loop. And then basically we can say that, say something like game loop, we can say log dot, and then we can say, is this really important, or is this, kind of finer, finest, or is it an info? And I would say probably it's an info when we start a game loop, right? That doesn't happen all the time. So we can say it started, game loop, or we say starting because we are about to do it. Starting game loop for, and then we can print the game here. Where's our game ID? Do we have a game ID here? I'm not sure. Actually, where do we have our game ID? I guess we don't. So the game of itself doesn't know about the game ID, which in a way makes sense. It doesn't have to. So maybe then we need to actually, well, yeah, what we're just gonna do, starting game loop. Fine. For now, that's fine. We may pass in, wherever we call that. Come on, you know it. Sometimes it's just too slow. So we have the server game, right? And then here we have the game loop, and then we try start. So we can say game loop to start, and we can give it our game ID, right? And then we can add that. And now we can say starting game loop, game ID. That's what I want to. Right? So now what we could do is launch our server and connect to clients. We should see that log message. What we'll do though is we'll just put a log statement also here. Instead of printing, we say log.info. And so we need to create a log. And it's basically the game updates server. Right? And so then we can say log.info server listing on port. So let's see what that looks like. We'll just start the server up just to see if that works at all. And then we can say, okay, we have logging capabilities now. And so you can see that it prints this kind of little thing here, and it basically also gives us a time stamp when the app started. So we can kind of see when it happened in relation to when our app started or our server started, whichever, right? So that was easy enough. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find all the print statements we have, and I'm going to put logs there. So this is in the game service. So we need a log there. So basically, here we create a log. All right. Okay, and now we can say whatever the print was. So we can say log dot, that's basically fine, right, at least. And then log dot, and that would be probably info, right, whenever a client disconnects. And then this would be log dot fine, right? So now we have that. See what other print we have. Okay, so these are all main methods. We don't need to clean that up, right? Whatever's in main methods, where we're just trying things out, we don't have to clean up. Okay, this one we have to. This is happening inside the client on game state event, but hold on. But this is like also kind of trying the right. This is part of the test stuff, right? Oh, so for now I think we are good. What I wanted to show is, like, again, when we start the server, when it prints, it should tell us, we can see it's from the game update server, right? And that's what we're getting simply by being able to add this when we have the game update servers, for instance, here, the game servers, just by putting game servers here or whichever, we get that, right? We don't have to name that on every log message. This log message will automatically add that to all the logs. And if you're interested in how that works, we can have a quick look. So basically, when we create a log, we say it's a logger of type of, we're basically getting the type of this T, right? This generic type, and we to stringing that, and so then a log gets created here with the name of the logger. So that's how we get that. We could also type string in here, but now the cool thing is if we were to rename this, this would be automatically renamed too, so I kind of like that. All right, so we can check that in. Diagnostics. All right, so we got that. Now, what I said, I wanted to basically be able to update the game loop from the server, or the game state, right? Now, things what I realized about the game model. So let me close all this. We don't need any of this anymore. So basically, what I want to do is, so the game model, right, has a bunch of stuff on it, and the thing is, this is basically arena information, right? This all is arena information, and the stats, like, we don't use yet. They most likely will be part of the player. So what I want to actually do is I want to kind of, when we create the game, instead of having the game model have all that, I want to basically have the game model be more like the game state. The game state has players, right? It doesn't have bullets right now, but that's fine. What we can actually do is we can put that in here. So you can see that there are two different things here, the update players and what I want to get to is I want to say that the game model basically extends the game state, so we can use it in its place. And so now obviously the game state needs to go to shared, right? So before I do this, or maybe this is actually more like a game update, or we can call it the game state. So it's basically things that change a lot, right? So the game model has stuff in here that don't change a lot, things in here that don't change. So what I want to do first maybe then is go to the game that we're using in the client, and I want to say that I don't want to depend on these. Actually, what I want to do is I want to pass in the arena as well. So the game can lose all these properties that don't change. So actually I'm going to make that the first parameter, right? And now where I create this, we need to pass in the arena. We should have the arena here. So let's just look at where we create the arena. The server should send us the arena. So if you ever get the client arena, right? There you go. So we just need to basically pass it along. Sounds like we want to pass along the whole client, but it's probably easier or cleaner to. But here's the thing: we've got the game model, right, and we have the arena. So let's actually put the arena on top, and then we put that here, and then we'll. And all these are required, obviously. And as you know, our required is currently kind of disabled because it doesn't really exist on the server. So our replacement kind of doesn't work with the analysis tools, unfortunately. So, okay, so we got the arena here. So what we can say is when we create the game, where are we creating the game? We pass in the arena as well, widget.arena. Okay, cool. So now we should be fine there, except that this needs to be client.arena, I think. Yeah. Okay, so now we're passing the arena. Now basically what we'll do, we'll go kind of brutal. We'll just remove all the arena stuff from the here. Brutal. Remove that from here. All right. So now obviously we can't do this anymore. Now we're gonna have a bunch of error, right? And errors. And the thing is, like, we're creating the background, and this comes from the arena now. These flow tasks. What more? This one also comes from arena now. This one also comes from arena. this one as well. Oops. Let's see what else. Okay, so we fixed those. Here we got another one. So this one comes from the game controller needs to have an arena passed in. And so it's kind of, and so we can say arena. Why is it complaining about this? So it doesn't know what an arena is, so that's why it's all confused. Alright, so now obviously where we create the game controller, we need to pass the arena as well. Alright, now if we go to create model, so create model, we don't need to pass these anymore. Alright, and now we finish this refactor. So basically now we cleaned that up. Now let's look at this. We got the game state. Game state has a map of players. Now let's look at let's compare this to the game model. We got players and we got bullets, and obviously those will be part of it, right? And what I want to do is I want to have a right now we have update players, but I kind of want to have update from game state or something like that. So the game state needs to be a global thing. For now, what I want to do is I want to make sure that things still work, but I'm going to launch this over here in another window. I'm going to launch the server, and basically, okay, what we'll do is we'll go back to just one player for now. So in our levels, in the simple level, we'll remove this one player, and so now we should be able to just launch one server and go. So right, so we launch the server, and then here we just launch a client. And now it's probably gonna, oh, okay, so it looks like our fmac function doesn't work anymore. I don't think it's an alias though. Oh, it is. Okay, so this is what we have. So we'll just change this here for now, and I'll change it in my, so by now, oh, it can't find the main file. Okay, let's just name this back then to main, if it really wants it to be main. That makes our life easier. Doesn't make sense to make our life harder than we need to, so. Right, because otherwise we'll have to change this alias, but then for every Flutter app it's going to be different. We don't want that, so. What? Oh, okay. What about, no, that wouldn't work. That miss. So what it wants it to be. Okay, this is not what I'm not that. I don't want to go that far, because now we basically would have to move our main to where it wants it to be. So let's look at this alias again, and we'll just change it. We just use this command. So basically, what I'm doing here, right, as you can see, I'm just basically getting the devices I have, and I'm pulling out the MAC ID, and then I can basically run it. I run that ID. That's pretty much. So if I run this by itself, right? If I remove this, let's just understand what I'm doing here. So if I'm doing this, it gives me macOS, right? Because when I do this by itself, it gives me And now I kind of see why this is so slow sometimes to start up. But it gives me this, and then I just pull out the first one. So actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to just type flutter run -d macOS. And then I'm going to point to the file I want to run. So now it should start up. Okay. I just want to see that everything still works. And actually what should happen is the player should still spin. And actually the server over here should tell us that the game loop started and stuff like that. So we can kind of see that we did a good job or not. Okay, so it's spinning, starting game loop, right? And it tells us that that happened. And that basically happened after 2 minutes, right? This is kind of nice that we have that. So this is also working. Perfect. So I'm gonna check that in, and that basically what we did here is game model, right? Separating, removing, right? Arena props from game, and the reason is because Arena, right? It doesn't update as much, and that's why the server only sent us the game state, and that's why it has to be separate because we didn't want the entire game model, right? So if you go back to the game model, right, before it had all these other properties in there which you didn't want. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to get rid of the stats for now, and I'll see, let me just see what happens if I remove it. How many errors we get? Not many. So I'm going to remove that. And still everything is fine. Now that's interesting, right? So now basically our game model is almost the same as the game state. But it gets updated from a game state, right? Our game model gets updated from a game state. The question is, why would we even need... Well, the thing is the game... Okay, yeah. So the game model is the one that we use, or it could also be a game state, but it's basically the client game state, and then we have the server game state. And I think it will help to rename them like that. Because the client game state will basically, since we do prediction on the client about what should happen until we hear back from the server, we'll basically, yeah. So we basically want to have our own state on the client, but we periodically want to sync with the server. So let's just check that in. Model temporarily removing stats from game model. Okay, so that's good. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to rename this server game state, and I'm going to rename the file as well. No, I want to rename the file, please. Let me just rename the file. So it's going to be server game state, right? And so the thing is, no, actually I don't want to name that server game state. Because that's the game state. Yeah, so let me just undo that. That whole renaming. Because that is the authoritative game state, right? And what we'll do now is we'll move this into a shared thing. And we move this into models. Even, right? Move this here. And then here we want to rename this client game state. And it extends game state, right? And so now we don't need this anymore because that's already part of the base class. Why is it complaining? Oh, because it's final. Okay. Right? And then basically what we want to actually have is void sync from with, and then we pass in a game state. Which will come from the server most likely. So then we can see this dot players is basically game state dot players. Oh yeah, we don't want this. We don't need this. Okay, so that makes us okay. Now what we can do, right? Wherever this is used, we can most likely just use. So let's rename this to game state, just to be. And now you can see how this works, right? We got game state event, we got game state. Now actually, if that kind of happens, we know that we're on the right track. So what we actually want to do now is game model sync with, and then we just pass the game state here, and also we want to rename that to game. Well, we're not. This is a client game state, right? So we need to rename it like this. So let's see. Let's also rename this to client game state. I mean, but if you miss them, that's fine. We can rename whenever we encounter them. Actually, I don't want to rename it sync with. I'm just going to name it sync. So let's do that. Okay, so now we got this going on, and now in our game controller. So let's find the game controller. Instead of taking a client game state, we'll just take a game state, and we will name it game state also, right? And it doesn't matter now if it's a client game state or another one. So the game state here is bullets. What we can do, yes, we can actually pull that down. So if we go to our game state, even though we don't use it yet, we can already put. So then we need to have the client game state. So we put these bullets already over here. That should not hurt at all. Obviously we need to for now what we're going to do is we're going to make a list of it. For now, this is temporary. Just so we don't have any null stuff going on. And as you can see now, our client game state almost needs nothing in the beginning. Because it gets synced from the server game state. And then, yes, it updates, but it doesn't have to be initially like created like this. So create model, and now you can see that we don't even need this create model at all. Almost. Yeah, we don't even need this. Yeah, I don't even know where is this used. Let's try this. Right? Now we don't need this anymore. We just create a game state, and we don't do anything with it yet. So basically, it's not initialized, right? So whenever we're trying to do something with it, the players need to have been assigned, right? Otherwise, so what we could do though is we could make it at the very beginning. We make it a right. So now we make sure that. Well, actually, we had that already. So yeah. So let's just do the same way for the bullets. I kind of like to have it like this. Okay. So that's a good refactor. So now we have now one game state. That's really cool. And now if we go to game controller, that game controller now takes a game state and operates on it, right? Which means that the server can now use it. And we'll get to that in a second. I just want to check this in. Model client game state simplified guide simplified. Right now, now we have this. Now we can basically on the server side, where we have our game loop, instead of doing like meaningless things, like for instance just adding the angle, we can actually run the basically we need a DT here, which we don't have yet. But basically what we need to do, we need to do a last tick. Let me actually look how our game loop worked on the client side. So this would be part of our engine. Game. Let's see, where do we have? Oh, it's part of the widgets, I think. Game widget. So here we have something schedule tick. We don't have a schedule. I think the schedule is from Flutter. Yeah, we don't have that. So when we do a tick here, right? How do we know this? Oh, it gives us that. Okay, so let's see how that works. It is a frame callback. Somewhere it must be tracking the time. So let's just look that up real quick. So Dart get timestamp. Right? Timestamp Dart. That's what we need, right? So yeah, so we want to have two things, right? So whenever this game loop is basically ticking, so we're gonna have a few values here. And then, oh, it's not going to be final, obviously. So we're going to have last tick. And so the last tick will always be whenever we tick, right? Date, time, dot, now. Wasn't it that? We have to actually create an instance. No? How? Okay. Oh, date time. Yeah, you have to spell it right, and then actually the things that you want to appear. So we got the last tick is name type now, and then here basically have the timestamp is date time dot now, and then the delta time. The delta time is the last tick. S minus, or do we have to do difference? Okay, last tick. So that's the delta time, and obviously last tick we need to assign whenever we start the game loop, whenever we schedule the first tick, right? So whenever we schedule the first tick, but yeah. So the last tick will basically be 0 if So basically, if the last tick is null, let's see if this handles null. Okay, not sure. What happens if we pass null? Well, what we're going to do is this. We're going to just say if the last tick is null, then it's 0. Then it's then it's 0. What actually returns the difference? It returns as the duration. Okay. Duration dot 0. And what we want to actually do, we want to pass this in milliseconds. And this is actually stupid, like to say it like this, but we could just do 0. But we want to kind of hone in what we're trying to do, right? We want to say there was no duration, and so then so this actually happens on tick, right? So here we get the difference. Obviously we need this. So this is a timestamp, so we can just assign this to the timestamp. And then when we so now we have TS, right? Yeah, so now we have the timestamp and we have the delta T. And then what we can do is the current game state, we can actually say, so here we need a controller, right? We need to create us a game controller. By the way, if anyone has any questions, I have the chat over here. So feel free to ask anything that you don't understand. That's why I'm streaming this live, even though I put this on YouTube afterwards. But okay, so now we have the game controller. And what does a game controller need? It wants the arena and the game state. Okay, so we need to pass this. Actually, you know what? I want to create the game controller outside here. I want to create this inside the game. So I'm just going to say, give me a game controller. So forget about this. We're gonna pass this from the outside. Okay, so now we have a game controller. So now all we have to do here is say this dot game controller update, and we give it DT and we give it the timestamp. Okay, but it wants double and double. Okay, so we won't use this. Okay, happy about that. But why is it not happy? But so we need to give it the milliseconds. But DT already is a millisecond. It's int. Okay. Okay, what I'm going to do is I want it to be a little more exact. Divided by you can do this. Still not happy. So now we have the milliseconds, but we have them a little more exact than just like milliseconds, right? So we want milliseconds, microseconds since epoch. If I put 1E3 here, Dart is weird, and like, well, that worked for some reason. If I put 1E3 here, still works. Okay, so I ran into maybe it was the other way around. Okay. All right, so we got this now. So then we basically update the game controller with that. Okay. And then we say the last tick is that. Okay, and then we don't have to do this thing, right? So the and we don't need the current state anymore if we have a, we don't need to access the current state at all. Or we do, but the game controller basically can give us the update. Could give us back the state maybe. I mean, we could make it to where it returns the game state. I mean, it is modified in place, so it's not like a pure function or anything like that. So the question is if this breaks anything. Where is this used? Client game loop. Okay, fine. So here in the client game, we just ignore it. Fine. And here we take it. Okay, good. So now we can go here and we can actually say that our final game state is basically this, right? And then we don't need the current game state at all anymore. We just add the game state, right? And then here, instead of passing this in, we already initialize this when we create the controller. So here we create the game loop, we instead create a game controller with the game state. And we don't even need this here in the game, at least not for now. So game state is not happy for some reason. Okay, wants two. I think wants the arena also now. Yes, it wants the arena and the game state. No problem, we have that all. Okay, so now we initialize the game controller perfectly. And now we can basically say, okay, update. And now the thing should run fine. So add player. So when we add a player, I want to actually add that then to the game controller. So the game controller will have a function to add a player. Right? So, okay, so what do we pass here? We're basically going to move this. I'm going to copy this better. We're going to copy this here. Add player. Here we have the player model. Let's see. Oh, the game state, right? All right. So then, when where we have this here, add player. Where do we have this? We just say game controller dot add player, right? And so now we have less to do here. Now the game controller takes care of that for us. And now the only thing we need to do to have some fun with this is, well, first of all, let's just start it. And then you can see how our logging kind of works nicely. So let's start our server again, and I want to just start our client just to see if things are still working. No, hold on, we didn't do this, right? Yeah, that's what we want to do. So let's just start our client up and see if this still works. So now the client should not move anymore, like it shouldn't be rotating anymore. But we are running the update of the game controller, so you know if something is broken there, we would already know about this. Even though, okay, so I'm not sure what that is. That might be something else. It might actually be not us this time. But so we attach the game. So that's cool. So now we're gonna kill the server. And I actually want to see if I can restart the server and reattach. So we're going to see that in a second. So what I'm going to do now is when I add a player, right, I'm going to put a little hack in there. Well, actually, before I do that, I'm going to add this because the hack we don't want to check in. But this basically what I'm going to do is when we update the game controller or when we add a player, we're going to say player dot velocity velocity equals offset dot so we're going to say the player is moving, let's say somewhat to the right and not to the on the y-axis, not moving. Alright, so now I want to see if I can just restart this player. And if it's going to attach itself to the server. Oh, well, first of all, I need... okay, now I'll check the stuff in anyways, but we'll fine. We'll be fine. Now I want to basically restart. Okay, start a game loop. So this will make us much faster too, if we can do it this way. So the game is attached. Oh, right. So we got a velocity. I guess the velocity is just too large. So let's make it a little slower. So the cool thing is now we can just restart the server. Maybe we can even just hard reload. Waiting for players. Okay, so we do okay, so we need to restart to reconnect, I think. Interesting, huh? So the client tries to move, but it keeps moving back to where it was. Okay, I mean, we got something going. I wonder why it's moving back like this. So that's where we basically can, this is where the logging will come in really helpful, right? So for instance, what we could do now is we can go into our player controller. We can look at what's going on here. So here we're affecting the velocity. So we can basically have some log here in the player controller. Right? And then we can say log, and this is a finest, right? We're going to say, so we're going to get an offset and what's this check? It's going to be an offset and a double. So the one is the most important part is the offset. Finest velocity after check. We just say check dot first. Right, so we print that out and then we say velocity before check. Or I can actually put that here. You can say player velocity, right? Okay, so we do that, and let's just go back to the server where we actually are initializing our logger. Hold on, where is this server? And we need to do the same in main in our game on the client side. And we can set it to finest, right? And so now it's going to be that. And I wonder if we can just, if we do a reload, if it will already start logging like this. So let's do that. Restart. Okay, so here you go. Play on vote before check 0, 0. So it was 0 for some reason. It's all 0. Okay, so let's see what's going on here. So let's actually on the server, in our game loop, right? Whenever we let's see, or maybe we are having the we're ticking every 100 milliseconds. So let's see like the DT. We're just gonna log the DT. Because I have a hunch that maybe we're not doing this correctly. Except that we need to say log dot finest, I guess. And did we and the server set finest? Okay. So now if we launch the server, we launch as a client. But I'm pretty sure we are moving due to the server. I mean, what we could do, like, just not. Yeah, if you just don't, I'm just gonna prove before the episode, because before we end this episode, I'm gonna prove that this is actually. So we have the T is 100 milliseconds roughly, right? You can see like we're trying to tick at 100 milliseconds, but we're ticking a little slower because there are more things going on. So this is good. We have the game loop here going on, and then we get things on the player send. So that's good. And we can see like it says game loop DT, right? But we can say tick, and we say right DT. Okay, so game state. We calculate the game state here, right? So what I'm going to do is like if I don't do this, I'm going to prove that the client will not move, and so then. So right now it's like moving back and forth, right? So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to reload. I'm going to restart the server, and then reload our client. How to restart it? Okay, so now we're ticking. We're waiting for players. No, that's not what we wanted. It seems like, okay. Let's start the server and let's just restart the client. We need to find a way to do this quicker, right? So I think in the next episode, I'm going to try to find a way to disconnect the client and reconnect the client to start a new game or something like that. Because this is like too slow, right? Every time we want to try something, we have to restart the app, and then it's building every time, which I don't understand why it's building. We already built. Like it seems like it's not caching the build for some reason. Why is it waiting for players? Oh, because we never send a game state ever. Okay, I get it. We need to send some game state. So what we're going to do is, instead of updating it, we'll expose the game state here as a getter. That's not what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to good getter. Okay, so I want to get getter for the game state. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just, instead of updating the controller, I'm just basically going to send the game state that we have here. Right? So now if I restart this guy, and then restart the client. So if I do a soft restart, that doesn't work. I have to do this kind of restart, hard restart. Okay, it was still moving. So I think what's happening is that actually I think what's happening is this, that the I think what's happening is that the if you turn I bet you this, if we turn off sync wherever we're syncing on the game controller on the client game state, sorry, find like this client, I bet you if we turn off the sync method here, it will not do what we're doing. See that? That's what's happening. So basically, we set the velocity. Somehow it affects actually our client directly, but then the server doesn't simulate the client correctly. It basically keeps setting it back. And the funny thing is that we see that the player control velocity is 0. However, it still keeps moving. So there's some weird stuff going on. But we'll figure this out. Basically, with a lot of logging, we'll basically log on the server. Like basically don't even worry about the client yet. We can even probably launch a client over the command line and just look at what the server prints out. I think that's the best thing we can do for now. And we'll lower down the tick rate to like something like every 2 seconds so we can actually see it. But yes, we will figure. So that's why I added the logger, because we can figure this out much quicker. Logging what's going on each part of the app, server and client part, and then we'll be good. So I'm going to check this in. So what did we actually do here though? I think we cleaned a bunch of things up. So some of the stuff is still adding logger. So this was still adding a logger. Okay. All right, and then where else did we add a logger? I wonder what belongs together. So this belongs together. Game loop. This belongs together. Actually, I'm going to disable this that we did on the client here on the server. Going to uncomment this because we basically are trying at this point to update the game loop on the server, and we'll figure out what's going on here. So now we got this, got our game model. Okay, definitely don't want that. Yeah, we're gonna remove this for now. We're gonna roll this back. Well, it's fine. No, actually, roll back. Roll this back. We're gonna do this we're gonna do this properly in the next episode. So for now, what we did, we got the game controller working here, right? So those are these, right? And then here we basically initiated a logger on the client, right? That's pretty much all that did there. And so in the next episode, which will be number 39, I think, we'll fix all this. So thank you for watching this episode, and make sure to watch the next one where everything will work so much better.